Welcome to the Taken Hour. Breathe in, settle your shoulders, and let the day loosen its hold. If you enjoy gentle stories for drifting off, subscribe now and rest with us each night. Tonight's tale is a soft sci-fi lullaby. A quiet lake at night, a boat of drowsy tourists, and a light beneath the water like a slow moon. The air is mild, the oars barely stir the surface, and stars hang as if listening. Nothing rushes. Even the crickets soften. The lake glows from within, not bright, not frightening, only a hush of blue that spreads like silk. Someone whispers that sleep might be easier here, where the world moves like breath. Let your eyes grow heavy. Let the water hold you. The boat's guide lowers a hand to the surface, then thinks better of it. Smiling without a word, the glow gathers beneath the hull, as if the lake itself were breathing. Gentle ripples coil outward, slow as the seconds before sleep. The tourists lean over the rail, eyes reflecting blue. No engines, no chatter, only the easy creak of wood and the small syncopation of water touching wood. Somewhere a loon calls once and then is quiet. The light beneath them shifts, a patient swirl, and the lake seems to listen back. Someone hums a lullaby too soft to place. The sky is a vast bowl of velvet. It holds everything without strain. At the stern, a traveler watches the glow curl like ink in reverse, folding into spirals that feel familiar. The pattern is not a shape the eye knows, yet it feels like home, like warm sheets, like a song remembered from childhood. The boat drifts without rowing, as if drawn by a pulse beneath. The others grow quiet, heads tilting. A moth taps the lantern glass once and then stays. The glow rises and gently touches the wood, not wet, not cold, only a spreading calm. The traveler breathes deeper, shoulders untying silent knots. The night is an arm around them all. Sleep tugs at the edges like a tide. A soft vibration glides through the hull, no louder than a daydream. The guide nods as if recognizing an old friend. The glow thickens until the lake is a slow galaxy and time dilates. The traveler's eyes half close, not from fear, but from comfort. The world narrows to breath and light. One by one, the tourists rest elbows on the rail and let their thoughts float away. The water's luminous swirls assemble into a gentle ring around the boat, like petals drifting into place. There is a taste of quiet on the air, a hint of rain that never falls. It feels like being seen and accepted exactly as one is. Later, when people will try to explain what happened, words will slide away. For now, the ring opens. A column of light rises from the lake, slow as a candle's breath stretched to the sky. No splash, no steam, only a lift, as if the water were remembering how to become light. The traveler feels a pull, not outward but inward, a feeling of being invited to rest more deeply than sleep. Eyes close. The boat remains. The others do not notice at first. They are listening to their own breathing, matching the rhythm under the wood. Somewhere, a watch ticks softly and then stops. The night holds everything gently, as if swaddling a dream. Morning arrives like watercolor. The boat bumps the pier with the faintest thud, and gulls circle lazily above the quiet marina. The tourists step onto the dock, blinking at pale sunlight, feeling rested, as if the night had been a lullaby more than ours. Only then do they notice the empty space, the place where the traveler should be. Shoes are still under a bench, a scarf draped over a railing. No alarm erupts, only a collective pause, like a room realizing it has been rearranged while it slept. The guide speaks slowly, voice like warm tea. People sometimes drift farther than they expect. The lake is patient, the guide says. So are we. The search is quiet, respectful. Local wardens glide in low boats, dipping oars with the care of turning pages. They find no wreckage, no footprints on the far reeds, no strange residue on the boards. Only the memory of a blue hush and the feeling of having slept well. Newspapers mention a mystery, but they whisper it between ads for fishing tackle and hot pies. At night, some return to the shore and sit with thermoses, watching for the smallest tremor of light. When the lake is dark, they still feel a gentle hum like a held note. It soothes without reason. A week passes, then two, and calm settles like dust on a shelf. 2 months later, a call arrives from a neighboring state where rivers braid through plains. A person has been found standing by a rest stop at dawn, hands open to the sky, face peaceful, eyes bright and unhurried. A nurse notes that time has left no mark, not a new line in the skin, not the faintest slack in the shoulders. The pulse is steady, the breathing deep. The person smiles at the light through a window and asks for water, then rests. No urgency, no panic, only an abiding calm that moves through the room like a breeze through curtains. The world edges closer to listen. The story unfolds slowly. The returned person speaks in simple phrases, as if every word must match a breath. There was a lake, they say. There was light that wasn't bright. There was a feeling like being heard by something that does not require language. They remember resting inside a glow that warmed without heat. They recall patterns that felt like lullabies. No rooms, no machines, no voices instructing, testing, hurrying. Only the sense of being kept safe and softly rearranged, like a blanket turned so the warmer side faced in. They smile when they describe the moment of return. A gentle lift, a shore of air, the easy weight of gravity like a hand. The lake, meanwhile, continues its nightly breathing. Those who visit report dreams that begin before they fall asleep. Long corridors of starlight that curve into themselves like seashells. Featherlight rain that never reaches the ground. A silence that feels companionable. Sometimes, after midnight, the surface blushes with faint blue. The glow does not crowd, does not demand. It arrives the way lavender arrives in a room, quietly, all at once. People begin to bring blankets and lie on the dock, listening to the wood tick as it cools. They wake in the morning with the taste of clarity and a mild surprise that the world is still here, unchanged and kinder. Scientists visit with nets they never use. They sit on the planks and let instruments rest closed at their sides. Words like bioluminescence and piezoelectric drift into the night but do not anchor. One of them offers that some currents are made of welcome. Another says perhaps the lake is a door that remembers how to be a room. Measurements are taken. Temperature steady, salinity ordinary, depth unchanged. Yet sleep near the lake is different, slow and thorough, like a quilt flipped to the cooler side. Dreams arrive like soft strangers and leave gifts, a phrase remembered, and old worry set down. No one hurries. The lake dislikes hurry. On a distant ridge, wind moves through pines with the sound of a long exhale. The returned person walks a path at dusk. Footsteps even, gaze soft. They do not speak of answers. They speak of textures, the way the glow felt like linen rinsed in moonlight, the way time loosened into a shawl and slipped over their shoulders. They say there was companionship without faces, presence without silhouettes, a chorus of listening. When they close their eyes, their breathing matches something that is not wind and not water, but the rhythm both learn from. They sleep without dreams and wake with one sentence waiting. It meant no harm. It meant to soothe. A journalist arrives expecting edges, questions with barbs, answers with locks. Instead, they find edges rounded like river stones. They try to describe the light, but end up writing about the quiet. They try to capture the event, but record sleep, the way people doze on benches with smiles they do not notice wearing. The article reads like a lullaby disguised as news. Letters arrive from readers describing moments when kindness took the shape of a room, a nap in a waiting area, a stranger's hand steadying the elbow, a night when the rain sounded like a cat purring against the window. The lake becomes a mirror for softness. Some recall an old local story about luminous fish that teach patience, but no nets have ever found them. The guide says stories are tools for carrying calm from one night to the next. When the wind shifts, the lake smells faintly of pine and something sweeter, like bread almost baked. People remark that their shoulders drop near the water, that arguments lose their corners. A child on the pier counts ripples and forgets to reach 60. The moon rises slow, as if remembering how, and paints the water with a soft path. The glow respects the moon, offering only a dim companion light that never overwhelms. One evening, the returned person stands on the dock and places a palm, a handspan, over the water. The glow answers from below, polite, an echo sensed rather than seen. The air seems to thicken into comfort, like a blanket warming in a dryer. They murmur that the lake is a listener that remembers. Not a deity, not a machine, something nearer to a friend made of patience. They suggest that the ring around the boat was not a trap, but an embrace. A few people step back without noticing. Others step forward, eyes wet for reasons they cannot name. The light rises and fades, like a nod at the end of a lullaby. Another month passes. The season tilts, but the lake keeps its temper. Migrating birds cross at dusk, their lines wavering like cursive written in the sky. The glow grows rarer now, as if teaching the town that calm must also be carried away in pockets, not only found here. People begin to practice slower conversations, longer walks, breaths that take up full space. The returned person moves through days with a pace that invites roads to shorten. They work, they rest, they sit by windows. At night, they come back to the dock, and the wood greets them with its familiar creaks, a language of small kindnesses. A visitor asks if there was fear. The returned person smiles gently and says, "Fear dissolved like sugar in tea." There were questions, yes, but they unknotted as soon as they were felt. They describe listening not with ears, but with the skin, as if wrapped in a shawl woven from tide and starlight. They say the glow traced old aches in the body and eased them without naming. No tests, only tenderness. The visitor writes the words down and then forgets the paper on a bench. In the morning, dew pearls its edges, and the ink blooms into little galaxies. The note becomes something prettier than itself. Sometimes the lake speaks in timings. Streetlights down the road flicker in an easy wave, one after another, like a hand passing softly along a row of shoulders. The wind picks up just as a kettle sighs off a stove in a nearby house. A dog lifts its head and decides not to bark. In these small alignments, people feel the same hush returned to them. The guide remarks that hospitality is a pattern you can learn. The lake seems pleased when everyone moves more slowly, like dancers discovering that the music is gentler than they thought. The glow does not perform, it keeps company. One rain-heavy evening, clouds press low, and the lake becomes a sheet of pewter. No glow shows, yet those who linger feel soothed. The rain starts as the softest static and resolves into a rhythm that could rock a cradle. Under umbrellas, people speak in low tones, or not at all. The returned person stands by the boathouse and listens to the gutters. Later, when the rain finishes, every leaf carries a bead of light from the street lamps, as if the glow had climbed out to rest in the trees. Sleep that night is full and uncomplicated. Dreams do not wander, they curl up and kurr. A local elder remembers a lullaby about waters that borrow travelers for a while and return them better folded. The words come back in fragments, but the melody lands intact, like a small bird finding its nest again. People hum it on the pier. The returned person hums too, and the lake laps the pilings in time. Nothing dramatic happens. That is the point. The night resembles a hand smoothing linen over a mattress, pressing out creases no one needs. A distant train passes without horn, as if it too were respecting the lullaby. The town yawns in unison and laughs softly at itself. At times, the story seems to thin, like mist lifting off a field. People ask fewer questions. They return to their small routines with better posture. The lake approves. It glows only enough to remind, like a nightlight you forget to notice once you've slept well for weeks. The returned person tends a modest garden, and the tomatoes blush earlier than expected. Neighbors accept baskets without asking about soil. They know the answer would only be the word patience, spoken with a smile. At sunset, dragonflies stitch the air with silver threads that disappear when you try to point them out. A letter arrives from a far city where traffic hums like bees in a jar. A reader writes that they have started breathing with the story before bed and now sleep through sirens. They ask if the lake will one day stop. The guide answers with a postcard. Bodies of water do not end, they change shape. Calm is like that too. The postcard shows the lake at noon, unremarkable, gentle, nothing to report. The reader pins it above a desk and touches the corner each night, a small ritual that feels like cleaning a lens. The sirens do not get quieter, the room does. Winter leans in early. The lake skins over with lace, not thick enough to hold, just enough to make music when wind drifts across. The glow remains beneath, a breath beneath glass. At night, the ice sings in low tones like wails far away. People walk the shore wrapped in scarves, and each footstep on frozen grass sounds like a page turned. The returned person watches the moon caught in cracks, then exhales, fog blooming and fading. The world seems to be learning how to speak softly in cold. Sleep is heavy and warm, like a cat on a lap. On the longest night, townsfolk bring lanterns and set them along the dock like a necklace. The lake offers its quiet glow in return, a tender duet of lights. Warm mugs steam. Mittens press against wood worn smooth by summers. A hush falls. That is not silence, but agreement. The returned person dips fingers through a gap in the ice and feels warmth that should not be there, and yet feels right. Someone starts a slow song without words. Another joins at a lower note. The harmony is simple and correct. It seems to fit the air, as a well-made key fits a lock. In the quiet after, a thought lands. Perhaps the lake is not a place where beings arrive, but the being itself, a consciousness that is not a mind, a kindness that is not a rule. It does not ask, it offers. Those who accept come away rearranged, as sleep rearranges us. Same bones, lighter burdens. The returned person says the glow felt like being included in a breath larger than lungs, a tide with room for every worry. When they speak, the town's clocks drift a second slower and decide to stay there. No one complains. The days feel precisely long enough. Spring answers with tender green. The lake loosens, ice dissolving into threads that vanish as you watch. Children drop pebbles and giggle at the perfect circles, then hush when the glow softly echoes them from below. The returned person plants herbs in a window box and smiles at the way the scent finds the room's corners. The guide says the season is not a switch, but a tide. People nod, feeling wise without needing reasons. Nights grow fragrant. Windows stay unlatched. The glow appears less often, but when it does, it feels like being remembered by name, even if no name is spoken. A travel program visits with a bright logo and quick questions. The crew plans for urgency, but finds themselves speaking softly. Boom microphones rest lower, as if bowing. The host stumbles over the word mystery and replaces it with kindness. The footage captures little. Water, sky, a boat, a long pause that somehow feels nourishing. Viewers write in saying they felt rested afterward, though they cannot say why. The producer replays the dock's creaks and uses them as the episode's music. The lake, indifferent to broadcasts, keeps breathing at its chosen tempo, which is to say, slower than headlines, faster than old stones. One night, a visitor presses both palms to the dock planks and silently lists worries like beads. The lake's glow gathers under their hands, as if reading not the list, but the weight of carrying it. When the visitor rises, the worries have not vanished. They have changed shape into manageable parcels. They walk home slower on purpose, noticing porch lights like little moons, gravel like tiny stars. Their bed feels wider. The ceiling seems farther away. Sleep drifts over like a curtain moving in a breeze. In the morning, the first thought is gratitude without an object, bright and simple. The returned person dreams for the first time since the lake. In the dream, there is no plot, only textures, warm wool, cool linen, the sweetness of ripe pears, the weight of a hand on a shoulder, the hush of rain across fields. They wake smiling, and the day follows the smile like a boat follows a current. At the shore, the glow offers a brief bow and then sinks. Later, a breeze tastes faintly of mint and stone. The dream lingers the way a song lingers after a choir has left the chapel, a resonance more than a memory. Some fear returns, as it always does. A rumor of danger circulates, like a moth against a lamp, and then exhausts itself. The lake does not argue. It only remains, steady as a pulse felt through a wrist. The returned person does not debate either. They carry water to plants. They sweep a porch. They stand on the dock and watch the line between sky and lake blur just enough to comfort. The town learns that reassurance does not need explanation. A cloud passes over the moon, and the water brightens slightly, as if giving back what the sky has borrowed. A group from the neighboring state visits with quiet curiosity. They bring the story of finding someone at dawn, a person who had not aged and who spoke like a slow river. They stand at the pier and bow slightly toward the water without deciding to. The lake responds with a single spiraling shimmer, the sort of greeting that requires no words. The visitors exhale together as if releasing a held cord. They take home jars of local honey and a habit of slower walking. Weeks later, their letters mention that time has not changed, but their pacing has, and that seems enough. The town starts a practice. At sundown, a minute of deliberate quiet. Doors close softly. Kettles rest. Pages stop mid-sentence. People breathe together without a plan to. The minute stretches into 90 seconds, then casually to 2 minutes, then finds its natural length. The lake acknowledges the practice with a small widening of light under the dock, like a smile that doesn't show teeth. Birds settle deeper in the reeds. Street noise lowers itself by half. The quiet does not feel empty. It feels upholstered. Afterward, words return with better manners. In the library, a shelf collapses gently, as if tired rather than broken. Books slide into a neat heap, spines up like boats in a harbor. The returned person helps restack them in the order the hands prefer, rather than the catalog. The librarian watches and nods. Later, a child finds the exact story they needed, about a far shore where rest is a kind of light. The lake appears on a page as a drawing of concentric rings, a lesson that ripples are not noise, but memory traveling. The child turns the page slowly, savoring the hush between lines. Late one night, the glow returns in full, encircling a boat again. But this time, no one is aboard. The ring forms, breathes, and opens like a flower. It is a demonstration, a rehearsal with no audience necessary. Those who happen to see it from shore feel included anyway. The lake is showing its grammar: invitation, embrace, release. The order matters less than the intention, which is steady. In the quiet afterward, the ring dissolves into 1,000 thin threads of blue that stitch themselves back into the deep. The dock sighs once. The town sleeps easily. A festival arrives, and with it, noise. The town decides to keep the revelry daylight soft. Banners look like laundry on a generous line. Musicians tune gently, then choose songs that lean rather than leap. Visitors comment on the way laughter feels padded, as if falling onto cushions. At dusk, the lake gives one slow blink of light and then rests. Fireworks are not launched. Lanterns are floated instead. The paper shells glide outward, quiet wishes you can actually hear yourself make. The wishes are small, which makes them quick to grant. Across the water, reeds sway with the steadiness of metronomes set to a human heart at ease. Crickets stitch a background that never tangles. In this fabric of sounds, the returned person hears the shape of the time they lost and the time they gained, and realizes they match. Aging paused, but living did not. Days are full of small work, meals warm and simple, windows that open to let the evening in. The lake's gift was not youth, it was a tempo. The town has learned to play in that key. The melody sounds familiar now. Rumors fade, then return in quieter clothes. The phrase alien encounter appears in a magazine article, but feels too sharp for what happened. Encounter suggests clatter. This was the opposite. If there was an alien, it was a kindness unfamiliar to our usual pace, a hospitality with no doors. The returned person thinks of it as a tide with good manners. The lake declines to comment, which is the foundation of its charm. People stop trying to name it and move to caring for it, skimming litter, repairing planks, mending nets they never use. The town grows gentler with itself. One dawn, fog lays a hand across the lake and does not lift for hours. Sound becomes a soft-edged thing. Bells on moored boats give small breaths, and the dock seems to float in nowhere. The returned person stands within the whiteness and feels the glow below like a heartbeat through a pillow. In this milky world, it is easy to imagine the sky and water trading places for a while. When the fog does rise, it leaves the day rinsed and ready. Breakfast tastes more itself. Coffee is kinder to the tongue. A small museum display opens in the town hall. A scarf, a pair of shoes, a watch that stopped and then started again on its own months later. There is a map with pins marking where the returned person walked after waking. Meadows, rest stops, a bridge over a quiet canal. Visitors stand before the case and feel hushed without being told to be. The display is not about proof. It is about texture, how a life touches surfaces and gathers a shine. The lake, framed in a photograph on the wall, looks like any lake. That is the comfort. The guide grows older, as guides should. Voice deepening into a register the lake seems to prefer. They speak to visitors in short sentences with long spaces between. The spaces do the real work. They point to the water and say, "Wait a little." They point to the dock and say, "Sit a while." They point to the trees and say, "Listen." People do. The glow responds when it wishes. When it doesn't, the quiet is not a failure. It is a practice. The town becomes a place where even departures feel like a gentle tide pulling out. Lightning visits one summer night, an energetic guest with good intentions. It barks far out on the plains, and thunder rolls in like distant furniture being moved. The lake does not glow, it rests. Rain falls heavily, and then softly, cleaning roofs, rinsing dust from porch rails, weighing leaves until they nod. After the storm, stars appear single and distinct, as if reintroduced. The returned person steps outside and feels the ground steadier for the washing. The lake breathes in, breathes out. Somewhere, a frog announces that the world is acceptable again. A traveler passing through learns the story in a cafe, sets down a suitcase, and walks to the pier without meaning to. They stand there longer than planned, then longer again. When they finally leave, they do so with a smaller stride and a looser jaw. The suitcase seems lighter, though nothing has been removed. At the next station, they find themselves helping another traveler lift a bag, and both laugh at how easy it feels. The lake, far behind, receives the laughter like a message, and answers by rippling once in the dark. A yes only it needs to hear. The returned person keeps a small notebook of short lines. Today, the wind was polite. The glow tasted like clean rain. The dock said good night with 3 soft sounds. Reading the notebook is like drinking water after apples. No big claims, only textures. When friends visit, they copy a line and carry it home in a pocket, a charm against hurry. The notebook grows dog-eared and lovely. The lake does not mind being written about. It knows paper remembers in its own way, whispering later, when hands are tired and eyes want something simple to follow. Another boat circles the center where the ring once formed. The water holds steady, no demonstration tonight. The silence is so complete that a single drip from an oar echoes. In that echo, the passengers feel a presence not watching, but attending, like a host keeping an eye on a kettle so it won't overboil. Everyone's shoulders fall by a fraction. The boat returns, and no one is missing. They step onto the dock and realize their feet have learned a new rhythm, one that refuses to hurry even when the path is clear. A painter sets up on the western shore with a mind to capture light, but ends up capturing breath. Their canvas shows water as slow lungs, sky as a blanket, trees as hands. The painting is more accurate than any photograph, and sells to someone who says they do not collect art, only rest. The painter returns often, content to fail at representing and succeed at absorbing. The lake approves. The glow lifts once, like a curtain, and falls again. In the studio, the painting keeps a room cooler in summer and warmer in winter, or so visitors claim. A late ferry hums across a distant river. The town hears it the way a sleeper hears rain, as comfort. The lake holds its tone, a long vowel that does not require consonants. The returned person lies awake in the kind way, tracing the ceiling's faint patterns. They feel remembered. They think of the column of light and understand it now as a breathing lesson made visible. The lesson required no student, only someone willing to slow. They smile and drift without trying, like a leaf persuaded by a mild current. The room agrees by dimming its edges. A botanist arrives and studies shoreline moss. They stay 3 days longer than planned because the moss seems to nap at midday and wake with the moon. The botanist takes notes that read like poetry by accident. They leave with a jar of ordinary water and a promise to return with no promises. The lake's glow bows to the moss one evening, and the botanist laughs out loud, delighted to be wrong about which subject is studying which. On departure, their coat smells faintly of clouds, a detail they record without hypothesis. In the diner, someone suggests building a platform closer to the center. The guide shakes their head politely. The lake likes reach, not intrusion. The town agrees easily because they remember how it feels when room is made for them. They order pie and eat it slowly, each bite a small vacation. Outside, the lake arranges a stripe of light that no one points out, though many notice. The stripe lingers until it becomes part of the evening's design, as essential and unremarkable as the scent of coffee in the diner's walls. A school class visits with notebooks and crayons. The assignment is to draw the feeling of the place. Pages fill with waves that look like feathers, stars that look like seashells, boats that look like hugs. No one draws faces, yet all the drawings feel accompanied. The teacher tacks them along a hallway, and the corridor hushes as if stepped on thick carpet. Parents walk through and begin whispering without realizing. The lake receives these bright papers like postcards and answers by sending a breeze that rings small chimes in 3 houses at once. Time goes on, as it is trained to. The returned person plants a sapling near the dock. They water it with lake water and a little patience. Seasons turn, and the tree finds its shape, which is the shape of yes. Its shade gathers evening picnics, morning levers, and quiet apologies. The glow sometimes braids through the roots on still nights, and the tree seems to hum back. The town does not make a plaque. They make room. People sit with their backs against the bark and discover that leaning can be a kind of gratitude. Another traveler disappears one summer, but this time the town does not panic. They keep watch with the tenderness of waiting rooms where joy is expected soon. The glow is steady and kind. 2 months later, almost to the day, the traveler steps out of a morning mist on a road in another state. Shoes dry, eyes bright, heartbeat calm. They carry no story, only a rested posture. The first word they speak is "thank you," and it is enough. The lake does not claim credit. It continues breathing, which is its way of saying, "You're welcome." Held against darker tales, this one can seem small. That is its strength. It teaches that the universe has rooms with quilts. It suggests that distance can be replaced by attention. That attention can be a kind of shelter. The returned person writes this in the notebook, and then crosses it out for being too neat. They replace it with a drawing of ripples that refuse to end. The lake approves. It glows once, briefly, like a mother checking a sleeping child and finding everything softly in place. In late autumn, geese rehearse leaving and decide to linger a week. The lake offers them a lane of light that stretches almost, but not quite, to the far shore. The birds understand the language of almost. People do too, when they allow it. The returned person watches them practice departures and feels no ache, only a good ache, the kind that proves a heart can host arrivals and farewells without breaking either. That night, the wind folds the town into sleep like a letter sliding into an envelope already addressed to morning. A clock in the town hall runs a minute slow now, by mutual consent. No one adjusts it. Meetings begin when shoulders settle. Meals end when laughter finds a quiet landing. Trains still keep their schedule, but the platform feels patient. The lake is not the reason for everything, yet it appears at the edges of many reasons, like a pleasant margin. When worry spikes, people walk to the dock and borrow the lake's tempo long enough to reset their own. The water gives freely and asks only that it be kept clean and spoken to with kind words. And always, night returns to the lake like a friend with quiet news. The glow sometimes arrives, sometimes rests, always considerate. The returned person stands at the end of the dock, breathing with the water until breath and ripple share a border. The memory of disappearing no longer feels like absence. It feels like a chapter where the page grew softer and did not tear. The town's lights blink once, twice, then settle. Stars lean closer without moving. Sleep walks down every street, knocking softly, and every house answers, "Come in." On a warm night, the lake offers an old lesson in a new shape. Instead of a ring, a meandering ribbon of light threads from the shore to the raft and back. It looks like a path, but behaves like a lullaby, repeating until memory hums along. A couple of watchers trace it with fingers in the air and feel their wrists loosen. The ribbon fades slower than it arrived, teaching the art of lingering. When it disappears, the dark left behind is kinder, as if trained by the light to hold gently. By day, the lake is untheatrical. Children fish with more hope than technique. Laundry sighs on lines. A dog naps like a dropped glove. The returned person sits with eyes half closed, not asleep, not awake, in the wide meadow of between. The glow is somewhere under the surface, unoffended by sunlight. It does not need dark to be itself. It needs time, which it has. People pass and feel steadier without noticing. A bird's shadow crosses a page, and the text looks more honest when the shadow leaves. When worries return, as they are built to, people have a path. They go to the water, sit on the dock's warm boards, and let the lake's quiet rearrange the stack. An hour there does not erase the list. It alphabetizes it by kindness. Tasks become simpler when breath leads. The returned person says the lake taught them to listen for the space after a thought. In that space, many choices turn from sharp to round. The glow is only a tutor. The practice is yours. The lake keeps the door open. The town develops a custom of small pauses. Before crossing the street, before answering a difficult question, before biting into a peach. Each pause is a lakelet, a pocket of luminous attention. People discover that most problems do not require force, only room. The returned person smiles when they see someone pause, as if catching sight of a lighthouse far inland. The glow appears less and less because it is less needed, the way a tutor visits less often when the student reads for pleasure at last. The column of light is not seen again, yet its shape persists, inside breaths and doorways, and the way curtains lift in summer. The story, told softly, begins not with a disappearance, but with a welcome. This reframing settles into the town like a well-fitted winter coat. The returned person writes one more note. The gift wasn't escape. It was return. Return to a pace that fits. They tuck the note between pages and forget which book holds it, trusting the right reader will find it when needed. Visitors still come, but they stay shorter, as if understanding quickly. They take home jars of lake air in their lungs and find themselves opening them on busy trains. The air uncaps without sound and settles into their shoulders. Workdays expand just enough to be humane. Even the copy machines seem to breathe between pages. If this is an encounter with another world, it is the kind that teaches you your own. The lake approves with a small gleam under the bridge at noon, like a wink that refuses applause. Once, a child asks if the lake is lonely when everyone sleeps. The guide says water invented companionship. It can hold sky and fish and boats and secrets and never spill a friend. The child nods solemnly and tosses a wish pebble. The glow lifts to catch it, then returns it, changed. Same pebble, quieter edges. The child pockets it and sleeps with a fist unclenched for the first time in weeks. The town learns from this without needing to state the lesson. Some teachings arrive as bedtime, not as lectures. The returned person sometimes stands where the ring first formed and imagines the boat full again, every seat taken by versions of themselves that once hurried. They watch those versions soften and wave them onward, into light, into dark, into errands and meals and sleep. They feel no loss, only alignment, like a spine settling. The lake sends a tiny, almost invisible ripple against the dock, and then stills. The gesture is so small, it feels private. They say thank you anyway, and the air smells briefly of warm bread. On certain nights, stars gather thickly just above the water, as if debating whether to dive. They do not. They mirror. The lake mirrors back. Between these mirrors, the town sleeps in a narrow band of gold, like a bookmark saving a favorite page. The glow stays tucked in the margins, content. The returned person wakes just once, smiles at the exact weight of their blanket, and sleeps again. The night continues, lengthy and kind, like a story that knows when to whisper and when to rest. The second disappearance becomes an annual story told at the water's edge. It is not told to frighten, but to reassure. The world contains returns as surely as departures. Listeners cradle mugs and let steam ribbon their faces. The guide ends the telling with the same line each time. Carry the tempo with you. People nod and lift their breaths as if lifting candles. The glow waits a beat and then pulses once, a punctuation mark that sounds like a lullaby's final syllable stretched with love. A final lesson arrives in a way no one notices at first. Mornings feel wider. There is room between alarm and obligation for a sip of air, for a look at the sky's first color, for a hand on a shoulder that says, "You first." The lake does not grow larger, but time does, swelling at the edges like bread proofing under a towel. The returned person laughs softly at how simple it always was. Breathe with what holds you. And at night, the lake breathes, and the town breathes, and the stars breathe, and sleep arrives and stays.